Section 14 of the Book of the Ancient Greeks. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Book of the Ancient Greeks by Dorothy Mills. The Great Persian Invasion under Xerxes. Salamis to the End. Chapter 9, Part 4. Salamis to the End. Athens was burnt. Her walls had been destroyed, but the Athenian men had not yet been defeated. They were with the fleet at Salamis and ready to fight to the death for the freedom of their state. They were joined there by the ships from the other Greek states. But when the news of the burning of Athens reached the Greek commanders, those who came from the Peloponnesus, especially the Spartans, were unwilling to remain at Salamis any longer, but wanted to sail to their homes, and should the enemy pursue them, make their last stand there. Themistocles opposed this policy with all his might, and a hot discussion followed. The Corinthian admiral taunted Themistocles with wishing to stay and fight at Salamis, because he had now no native land, to which he replied that where there were Athenian ships and Athenian men, there was Athens, and that moreover it was a larger land than Corinth, seeing that the Athenians had sent 200 ships, more than the ships of all the other Greeks put together. In spite of his passionate appeal, the commanders of the other Greek ships decided to set sail and leave the Athenians to fight the barbarians alone. In these desperate straits, Themistocles thought of a stratagem by which he might force a battle before his allies had time to desert him. He sent a secret messenger, whom he could trust, in a boat to the encampment of the barbarians, and charged him to give this message to Xerxes. Quote, "The commander of the Athenians sent me privately without the knowledge of the other Hellenes, for as it chances he is disposed to the cause of the king, and desires rather that your side should gain the victory than that of the Hellenes. To inform you that the Hellenes are planning to take flight, having been struck with dismay, and now it is possible for you to win a great victory if you do not permit them to flee away, for they are not of one mind with one another, and they will not stand against you in fight. But ye shall see them fighting a battle by sea with one another, those who are disposed to your side against those who are not." End quote. Xerxes received this message with joy and immediately acted upon it, and began to surround the Greeks so that no one might escape. Whilst this was being done, Aristides, the banished rival of Themistocles, whose sentence had been lifted in this hour of peril when Athens needed all her sons, suddenly returned with Aegina to the Athenian fleet, and with the news that it was impossible for any of the Greeks to sail away because they were even then surrounded by the enemy. Aristides gave this news first to Themistocles, saying to him that if at other times they had been rivals, there was only one kind of rivalry in which they could now engage, a rivalry as to which should do more service to his country. The news he brought was true, and the Greeks could not now escape a battle. The sea fight began as the day dawned. Xerxes had erected a great throne for himself, from which he could watch the events of the day. Quote, "And full in view of all the host the throne stood on a high knoll hard beside the sea." Unquote. Aeschylus, a great Athenian poet, who was himself present at the battle, wrote a play called The Persians, in which a messenger takes the news of Salamis to the mother of Xerxes, waiting at Susa for the return of her son. Never before had he been defeated, but now she must listen to a tale of woe. Quote, "'Twas this began all our disaster, queen. A demon or fell fiend rose, who knows whence? For from the Athenian host a Hellene came, and to thy son, to Xerxes, told this tale, that when the murk of black night should be come, the Greeks would not abide, but leaping straight upon the galleys' thwarts, this way and that, in steady flight, would seek to save their lives. Soon as he heard, discerning neither guile in that Greek, nor the jealousy of heaven, this word to all his captains he proclaims, that when the sun should cease to scorch the earth, and gloom should fill the hallowed space of sky, in 3 lines should they range their throng of ships to guard each pass, each seaward surging straight, and others should enshrine all Ice Isle, since if the Greeks should yet escape fell doom, and find their ships some privy path of flight, doomed to the headsman all these captains were." Thus spake he, in spirit overconfident, knowing not what the gods would bring to pass. With hearts obedient, in no disarray, then supped our crews, and every mariner to the well-rounded rowlock lashed his oar. But when the splendor faded of the sun, and night came on, each master of the oar a shipboard went, and every man at arms. Then rank to rank of long ships passed the word, and as was each appointed, so they sailed. So all night long the captains of the ships kept all the sea host sailing to and fro, and night passed by. Yet did the Hellene host essay in no wise any secret flight. But when the day, by white steeds chariot borne, radiant to see, flooded all earth with light, first from the Hellenes did the clamorous shout ring from a triumphant chant, and wild and high pealed from the island rock the answering cheer of echo. Thrilled through all our folks' dismay of baffled expectation, for the Greeks not as for flight that holy pagan sang, but straining battleward with heroic hearts. The trumpets' blare set all their lines aflame. Straightway with chiming dip of dashing oars they smote the loud brine to the timing cry, and suddenly flashed they all full into view. Foremost their right wing seemingly ordered, led in fair array. Next all their armament battleward swept on. Therewithal was heard a great shout, quote, "On, ye sons of Hellas, on! Win for the homeland freedom, freedom win for sons, wives, temples of ancestral gods, and old sires' graves. This day all are at stake." End quote. Yea, and from us low thunder of Persian cheers answered. No time it was for dallying. Then straightway galley dashed her beak of bronze on galley. 'Twas a Hellene ship began the onset, and sure all the figurehead from a Phoenician. Captain charged on captain. At first the Persian navy's torrent flood withstood them, but when our vast fleet was cramped in strait space, friend could lend no aid to friend. Then ours by fangs of allies' beaks of bronze were struck, and shattered all their oar array, while with shrewd strategy the Hellene ships swept round, and rammed us, and upturned their hulls of ships. No more could one discern the sea, clogged all with wrecks and limbs of slaughtered men. The shores, the rock reefs, were with corpses strewn. Then rode each bark in fleeing disarray. Yea, every keel of our barbarian host they with oar fragments and with shards of wreck smote, hacked, as men smite tunnies or a draught of fishes. And the moaning, all confused with shrieking, hovered wide o'er that sea brine, till night's dark presence blotted out the horror. That swarm of woes, yea, though for 10 days' space I should rehearse, could I not tell in full. Yet know this well, that never in one day died such a host, such tale untold, of men. End quote. Xerxes, the great king, was defeated, and his one desire now was to return home to Asia. He left his general, Mardonius, in Thessaly with a picked body of men who should carry on the war in the spring. But he himself, with what was left of his army, marched back through Macedonia and Thrace to the Hellespont, and so back to his own land. It was a very different march from the triumphant one he had made earlier in the year. The inhabitants of the lands through which he passed had no fear of a defeated king, and it was difficult to obtain provisions. The Persians seized what crops there were, quote, "and if they found no crops, then they took the grass which was growing up from the earth, and stripped off the bark from the trees, and plucked down the leaves, and devoured them. Then plague seized upon the army, and some of them who were sick the king left behind." End quote. In such manner did Xerxes return home. In the meanwhile, Mardonius and his army spent the winter in Thessaly. When the spring came, this was the spring of 479 B.C., he sent a messenger to the Athenians who spoke these words to them, quote, "Athenians, there has come a message from the king, which speaks in this manner. I remit to you all the offenses which were committed against me, and this I say, I will give you back your own land, and any other in addition, and you shall remain independent, and I will rebuild all your temples, provided you will make a treaty with me." End quote. The Spartans heard that this message had come, and they sent messengers to Athens, imploring the Athenians to make no terms with the barbarian, for they feared that if Athens became subject to Persia, there would be no safety left for them. They offered to send supplies to Athens to make up for the loss of their harvest, destroyed by the Persians, to support the families of those Athenians who had been slain, to do almost anything, in fact, if only the Athenians would stand firm. The Spartans need not have feared. The freedom-loving Athenians were not likely to submit to a barbarian foe. They sent back to the Persians this answer, quote, "So long as the sun goes on the same course by which he goes now, we will never make an agreement with Xerxes. But trusting to the gods and heroes as allies, we will go forth to defend ourselves against him." End quote. To the Spartans they said, quote, "It was natural, no doubt, that you should be afraid lest we should make a treaty with the barbarian. But it was an unworthy fear for men who knew so well the spirit of the Athenians, namely, that there is neither so great quantity of gold anywhere upon the earth, nor any land so beautiful, that we should be willing to accept it and enslave Hellas by taking the side of the Medes. Be assured of this, that so long as one of the Athenians remains alive, we will never make an agreement with Xerxes. We are grateful for your thought toward us, but we shall continue to endure as we may, and not be a trouble in any way to you. But send out an army as speedily as you can, for the barbarian will be here invading our land at no far distant time. Therefore, before he arrives here in Attica, come to our rescue quickly in Boeotia." End quote. Thus the Athenians made answer, and upon that the envoys went away back to Sparta. When the messengers returned to Mardonius with the answer from Athens, the Persian general marched out of Thessaly down through Boeotia into Attica, and for the second time the barbarian burnt Athens. Xerxes had left but little to burn, Mardonius left nothing. He then marched back into Boeotia and set up his camp in the region between Thebes and Plataea. Here he waited for the Greeks. There was some delay before they came, for the Spartans made various excuses for not setting out, but at length, under their king Pausanias, they marched out and joined the Athenians. And then at Plataea was fought the last great battle in this great war. All day long it raged, and at first it seemed as if the Persians were gaining, but whilst the outcome of the battle was still in doubt, Mardonius was killed, and with him fled all the hopes of the Persians. They took to flight, but were pursued and overtaken by the Greeks, and very few were left alive. The Greeks then entered the camp of the Persians, and they gazed in astonishment at the riches they found there. There were, quote, "tents furnished with gold and silver, and beds overlaid with gold and silver, and mixing bowls of gold, and cups and other drinking vessels." Unquote. 1/10 of this rich plunder was sent to Delphi, and the rest divided amongst those who had fought the battle. A bronze statue of Zeus was sent as an offering to Olympia, and one of Poseidon was sent to the Isthmus. It was further resolved that the land belonging to Plataea should be held sacred forever, and that never again should fighting take place on it. After the Persians had taken the pass of Thermopylae, the body of Leonidas had been taken, and cruelly used in revenge for his having dared to withstand the great king, and to slaughter so many of his Persian soldiers. It was suggested to Pausanias that he should take vengeance for this barbarous act by mutilating the body of Mardonius, who had fallen in the battle. Quote, "Stranger," he answered, "thou holdest me as naught by advising me to do such a thing. These things it is more fitting for barbarians to do than for Hellenes, and even with them we find fault for doing so. I do not desire in any such manner as this to please those who like such things. As for Leonidas, he has been greatly avenged already by the unnumbered lives which have been taken of these men. As for thee, come not again to me with such a proposal, nor give me such advice, and be thankful moreover that thou hast no punishment for it now." End quote. In the Persian camp the Greeks found the tent of Xerxes himself, which he had left for Mardonius, not wishing to be cumbered with too much baggage in his flight from Greece. When Pausanias saw it, he, quote, "seeing the furniture of Mardonius furnished with gold and silver, and hangings of different colors, ordered the bakers and the cooks to prepare a meal, as they were used to do, for Mardonius. Then, when they did this, as they had been commanded, it is said that Pausanias, seeing the couches of gold and of silver with luxurious coverings, and the tables of gold and silver, and the magnificent apparatus of the feast, was astonished at the good things set before him, and for sport he ordered his own servants to prepare a Laconian meal. And as, when the banquet was served, the difference between the two was great, Pausanias laughed and sent for the commanders of the Hellenes. And when these had come together, Pausanias said, pointing to the preparation of the two meals severally, quote, "Hellenes, for this reason I assembled you together, because I desired to show you the senselessness of this leader of the Medes, who having such fare as this, came to us, who have such sorry fare as ye see here, in order to take it away from us." End quote. Thus it is said that Pausanias spoke to the commanders of the Hellenes. End quote. After the battle of Salamis, the Persian ships had withdrawn to Samos, and those of the Greeks to Delos, where they had spent the winter. In the spring, when the armies were marching out to meet at Plataea, the fleets moved slowly towards the Ionian coast, and on the same day as the Battle of Plataea, so Herodotus tells us, they met in a fierce sea fight, in which the Persians were completely routed. Thus, on the same day, by land and sea, the barbarian was defeated, and Greece was free. She had proved that right was greater than might, and that in the cause of freedom the weaker might stand against the stronger and prevail. End of section 14. Read by M. Michaels, China, September 2022.